in the night, your heart fills with dread. Probably a murderer who wants you dead. It could be a ghost, a demon, or worse. Perhaps you're the victim of a witch's curse. It's hopeless, you're doomed. You'd call a priest if you could. You'd rather just listen to who? Sinisterhood.
Well, hello, and welcome to another edition of Freaky Friday, where we tell your odd but true stories. It is a Friday, January 3rd. It's the first Friday in 2025, and it's Christy Wallace's birthday eve. A round of applause, ladies and gentlemen, for our favorite Capricorn.
No applause necessary.
The goat.
We're all surprised it happened, aren't we?
2025 is here, indeed.
I honestly just forgot how old I am. Am I turning 46?
I would, yes, based on the 9 and the no. Yeah.
Okay.
Because you're, yeah.
Yep, that's where we're at. Okay.
Yeah.
We're at 46, so.
My niece at Christmas goes, how old are you? And I went, 38? I was like, doing math in my head. I'm like, well, I turned 36 a couple years ago.
I somehow, after 40, I've just never really kept track. So yes, 46 is where we're at. Tomorrow, when you're listening to this, it's wild. We're already in January. First time I wrote 2025 in the outline. So here we go. Hopefully, maybe by now, they've made themselves known. We'll see. Maybe it happened on New Year's Eve.
I did ask ChatGPT. I was like, do you think that the non-human entities will make themselves known? And it said, who says they haven't been making themselves known? And I was like, you're a language learning model. You don't know anything. Do you? I was like, why would you say that?
She knows. Yes, she knows more than she's letting on. But
she does.
Well, hopefully everyone had a wonderful holiday, wonderful New Year's, and that this first Friday of January is treating you well.
Hell yeah.
Well, I'm Christy.
I'm Heather.
And let's get freaky. This first one is also from Heather, not you, and it's called That Time Y'all Manifested a UAP While I Was Listening to Your Podcast. Hey there, my sinister sisters. Hello from your neighbor down the road in San Antonio, Texas. I've been loving your show for a couple of years now, having started at the very beginning and caught up, so now that I wait anxiously for every Wednesday when a new episode airs. Let me just start by saying y'all are the best. I love your humor, kindness, and the way you treat victims of the crimes you discuss with the respect they deserve, all while treating the scumbags who commit said crimes to equal amounts of disgust. Heather, great name by the way. The way you explain the ins and outs of the legal process in clear, understandable language makes the criminal cases even more meaningful. In short, thanks for being two amazing human beings who are a bright spot in this ever-dimming society we live in. Thank you, Heather, for the kind words. Heather continues, I have never encountered a UFO, UAP, WTF before today. So as soon as I got home, I had to write you. This morning, on my way home from my granddaughter's kindergarten Christmas concert, cue the ahs, I was listening to Freaky Friday episode 142, sharing stories of drones, UAPs, and other sightings, when I looked out my side window, only to see a large white object holding stationary in the sky north of me. It looked like an airplane, except I couldn't really see the wings the way one typically does. That effer had its nose pointed up at about a 60-degree angle, as though it were climbing, yet it hung, motionless. Of course this caught my eye, as I am now on high alert to strange objects in the sky, thanks to all the recent drone sightings, as well as your astute coverage of them. I kept looking at the plane, then looking back at the highway, obviously not wanting to cause a wreck, but unable to ignore the fact that it just didn't move. When I looked at my front windshield, I saw another airplane, clearly flying away from the airport. I live not too far from the San Antonio International Airport, and there are always planes in the sky. This airplane looked exactly like it should, commercial markings and all, and was clearly flying on a path away from town. I looked back out my side window, and there was the other plane, again in the same exact position that had been a couple seconds before. Now, the center of my brain that still managed to grasp onto reason and logic reminding me that sometimes a plane will look stationary in the sky because of the angle or direction you're traveling in relation to the path the plane is taking. However, as I exited one highway for another, my path took me in a different direction, where I could see the object from a different angle, and it was still not moving. In order to not become a UAP myself, jettisoning off the flyover of the highway intersection, I turned my eyes to the curving exit ramp in front of me for literally 2 seconds, then turned around to look at my window again, and it was gone, nowhere to be seen. Back to the reasoning center of my brain, telling me that it was just the aforementioned phenomenon and everything was fine, just fine. I just got a little hyped up over your magical storytelling skills and was overreacting. However, the ever-growing center of my brain, filled with existential dread, was fully prepared to accept this as another unexplained instance of something. Drone? Mothership? Secret government spy plane? Going on out there beyond our understanding, or at least something we aren't being told about. It is probably the former, but either way, thank you so much for the opportunity to get overly excited about something on what otherwise would have been the same boring drive home. I thought about taking a picture or video, but didn't want to add to the number of irresponsible drivers already existing in my beloved city. So sadly, I don't have proof to send in, but I saw what I saw. I'm so glad for an opportunity to write into you gals. I have some other stories to share, and I'm hoping to take some time over this winter break to actually get them written and sent in. Love y'all and what you do. Happy holidays and keep it creepy always, Heather.
Well, Heather, my first thing that sprung to mind was that parallax effect where like if you're driving and the plane's moving, it can make like a plane seem like it's not. We see it when we go to DFW all the time. It's kind of like, damn, it looks like those planes are just hanging in the air. But
I was just talking about this last night to Tommy, but I couldn't remember the name of it. It is parallax. I was just describing what it is. But yeah, it's weird that that one did it and the other one didn't, but perhaps the angle you were at. But why, when you turned back around, was it nowhere to be found? Where'd that thing go?
Right. It's like my angle didn't change that much that it all of a sudden would like zoom off. And then they say that unexplained extreme, like starting at nothing or seemingly still and then rocketing off in a inexplicably fast way is a marker of a UAP. So who are we to say? I mean, it was unidentified to you at least.
Truly.
And it was in the air. Yeah. So this was a UAP for you.
I think all of us are looking to the skies more these days to see what's going on up there. So maybe, this was recorded before January. So perhaps you were just seeing the beginning of something that we're all now grappling with.
It has started in San Antonio. Well, thank you very much for sending that in. You don't have to take a photo, and especially if you're driving on a highway flyover, don't. Good job not
Probably
taking
a good idea not to. Yes.
For sure.
Well, thank you, Heather, for sending that in. This next one is from Andrea, and it's called 90s to Now. Slowly over my lifetime, I have shared bits and parts of my encounter with a black triangle spacecraft as a child. Listening to your Freaky Friday episode 142 gave me the courage to finally write down my experience and subsequent strangeness that occurred later. Okay, so my encounter happened back in 1993 in Corvallis, Oregon, heading southbound on I-5 around dusk. My mother's at-the-time boyfriend was driving, Mom in the passenger seat and me in the back seat. They noticed a few cars pulled off on the side of the freeway and saw people out of their cars looking up. Peering from the back seat as we also pulled over, I could see what everyone was looking at as we got out to look. A massive, silent, total blackout, almost void-like triangle was hovering about 80 feet up in the field next to the road. Looking at it, I felt an ominous feeling, but wasn't afraid of it. I've shared with a few folks that I also experienced what I can try to describe as a montage of visions and images, most not making any sense to me then or now. Again, I was not afraid of this either, even though some images were negative, some indescribable. Eventually, we got back in the car and kept on our trip. We did not discuss this for many years when my mom validated that this did happen, and she too remembered. Concurring that the encounter was somewhat uneventful, I had not told my mother about the, quote, image download part. It took me 2 decades to work up the strength to share that part with anyone. Sometimes I reflect and agree that it was kind of uneventful, But then a bonkers thing happened later that year. I had an assignment for school to think of an invention to present to the rest of the first grade class. Strangely, I thought of a very out-of-the-box invention. I was riding my bike around the neighborhood a lot then and wanted a way to collect people's phone numbers. Apparently, I was making lots of friends, and calling a friend on a landline was the norm. I designed a mock-up picture of what could be the invention. See attached, not the original. My invention was a digital notepad that could be attached to my bike handlebars and could store lots of numbers. The weird part is how I designed this thing. I drew a rounded-off rectangle slate with little square folder-looking things on the screen. I even used a magnifying glass in the drawing to show a zoomed-in part, highlighting a contacts folder. I presented this invention to my class and got a good grade on it. However, I was told it would be displayed, and it never got returned to me. Remember that this was the early 90s, and folks did not have smartphones yet, and the ones that were being created did not look like the ones we have now, like my drawing. I do also want to point out that I lived within 10 minutes of the Hewlett-Packard facility, and technology was definitely in the air during this time. Found out later in life that HP and IBM were in a race to develop the first smartphone around this time. Freaky. Only since 2020 have I shared my invention part of my story to some family members who don't believe me. I don't care if folks believe me or not, and I am trying to get more comfortable with my story. I've learned that I don't gain or lose anything from sharing. Making art over the years has helped. See attached. Writing this out has helped. Hearing you share people's stories has helped. If anything, I hope this can help someone else as it has helped me. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Well, first of all, Andrea, thank you for inventing the cell phone. It's a really important part of my life. And
Yeah,
your drawing
I use it
looks
every
like
day.
an iPhone. Yeah, it looks like an iPhone.
That's wild for a first grader in the early 90s to have the forethought of this idea. We can share Andrea's drawing on our socials, but it definitely looks like a smartphone attached to your handlebars where you would put numbers in one of the contact folders.
Yeah, with the little squares on it too. It's funny. But as far as what you saw, the massive silent triangle hovering above the field, this sounds similar to the one that Steve and Larry, the guys in Bridgewater, saw. Kind of that triangular shape. I believe Chris Bledsoe saw something similar to that too. So I don't know what it is with the triangles. They like the triangle shapes. And just like the kids in the aerial school, the images, like the image download to their brains.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too, especially having to do with technology. The kind of image download. And like you said, Andrea, not even really making sense at first. But then now looking back, you're like, oh, they sent me the iPhone before it was ever the iPhone.
You're going to love it. You're going to spend all your time with it.
Well, thank you, because we all use it a lot. And I hope you got first place, because what an invention for a first grader to come up with. Also, if you were in this area around this time and happened in 1993 in, I hope I'm saying this correctly, Corvallis, Oregon, on I-5 around dusk, did you see a giant, and Andrea drew a picture of this too, triangle-shaped black object with 3 red lights at each corner?
Great. I mean, I bet somebody saw it. And I bet somebody, the government, didn't want you to see it. It was like, you're not supposed to, we're testing it.
We're testing it out. Somehow, though, the wires got crossed and you got a download of what they also had up their sleeve and then shared it with your class. A decade before the rest of us got to see it.
Yeah, shout out to you for sharing this. Thank you. And also, I'm sorry, they took your idea very clearly, sent it to Apple, and we're like, yes, we'll display your picture. Sure. Send it through fax machine.
Great idea, though, especially if you're on your bike and you don't have a cell phone, but you want to know, like, if your friends are home, but you don't want to bike all the way over there.
Genius.
Smart stuff.
Sinisterhood will be right back. When it comes to grocery shopping and meal planning, I've got this problem. I'm terrible at it. I have to remember what to buy, where to buy it,
Hate it,
how to cook, when to cook, what to get, how much of things to get, what recipes do I want to do.
Knows?
It's not going to...
I don't know any of that, and I don't want to figure it out either.
Sucks. No, I hate it. But all of that changed thanks to Hungry Root, because it's the easiest way to be healthy.
Hungry Root is like having your own personal shopper and nutritionist all wrapped into one. They take care of the weekly grocery shopping. They recommend healthy groceries and meals tailored to your specific tastes, nutrition preferences, and health goals.
All of Hungry Root's recipes can be made in just 15 minutes or less. With over 15,000 recipes shipped each week, there's something for every taste and nutrition preference. Before we started recording today, I had a lovely bagel with some nice probiotic cream cheese that was sent to me. It was a gluten-free bagel. Paris made the green chili chicken enchiladas the other day, and we've been eating leftovers on them. It's good stuff, too. It's stuff I would choose if I was going to go to grocery shop, but I don't.
Tommy made cauliflower linguine, which I believe is also gluten-free, and meatballs. It's anything that gets shipped to my door and everything's taken care of and it can just be cooked. That is my dream, because you know what? I can't afford a personal shopper and a nutritionist, but I can afford having all of those wrapped into one with Hungry Root. And they also have things like smoothies, kids snacks, which come in clutch all the time, sweets, ready-to-eat meals, salad kits, and even supplements.
Yeah, that salad kit was good with a steak on it. You're going to love Hungry Root as much as we do. Take advantage of this exclusive offer. For a limited time, get 40% off your first box, plus get a free item in every box for life. Go to hungryroot.com/creepy and use code creepy.
That's hungryroot.com/creepy. Code creepy to get 40% off your first box and a free item of your choice for life. hungryroot.com/creepy, code creepy. Well, this next one is from Chloe, and it is called I Flung a Shoe at My Sleep Demon. Hi, I adore you both so much my heart could burst. Thank you for birthing the best podcast I've ever stumbled upon. I have FOMO and wanted to send in a Freaky Friday story after literal years of listening to you guys, but I don't have many spooky stories. I was reminded of this story when a few months ago, I began to experience sleep paralysis again. When I was in high school, sleep paralysis was a fairly normal experience for me, but it kind of went away after I graduated, and it's been close to 7 years since I've had it. It's been frustrating to deal with again, but luckily, I haven't experienced something as unsettling as the story I'm about to tell you. So, my senior year of high school, I moved in with my aunt and uncle, along with their 4 kids, so I could finish up my senior year. I was bullied pretty heavily in high school, so my mom and stepdad figured it would be best for me to have a clean slate for my last year in school, since my grades had dropped pretty significantly and my mental health wasn't all that great. Those years were some very ungroovy times. In my aunt and uncle's house, they had a finished attic that I moved into. It was pretty spacious and had a bathroom up there and everything. So that's where I stayed so I could have my own space. Though it was spacious, the attic layout was strange, to say the least. When you walked up the stairs, there was no door to the attic. Instead, you were met with a wall and could either turn left to a little area with a window or turn right 2 times and end up in the area where my bed and bathroom were. Because of the weird layout, when I was laying in bed, there was a whole area of the attic I couldn't see unless I rounded that corner. For the months that I lived there, I never once felt uneasy or creeped out. I've always loved true crime and horror, so I feel as though I'm pretty immune to most scary things. Towards the end of my time living with my aunt and uncle, I would sometimes get the feeling that I was being watched, or at least wasn't alone up there. I chalked it up to stress and lack of sleep from trying to finish up work in order to graduate on time. Your girl was very far behind, and I was an anxious train wreck. One night in particular, I was up later than I usually would be. I'm definitely a night owl, but I believe it was around 3 or 4 in the morning when I was trying to finish a reading assignment for one of my classes that I had definitely procrastinated. I had a small lamp on my desk that I'd use at night, and apart from the little area with my bed, the attic was pitch black. I remember that this specific night, I was laying in bed reading and accidentally fell asleep. I'm not sure how long I was out before I woke up and quickly realized I was experiencing sleep paralysis. I've had it a lot before, so I was familiar with the feeling. I was laying on my side, my back facing my room. Laying there, fully conscious, but not being able to move your body at all is extremely anxiety-inducing. I remember struggling to open my eyes a bit. Not that it did much. All I could see was the wall. I laid there for what seemed like ages, trying my best to wake myself up completely, when this feeling of what I can only explain as overwhelming darkness came over me. I just knew someone or something was behind me. And all the times I'd had sleep paralysis before, I had never had any sort of hallucinations or anything remotely similar, so I knew this wasn't good. From my sleep paralysis stints in the past, I knew I needed to go back to sleep or be woken up by someone to get out of it. Neither was an option at that moment since I had a demon staring me down, and it was like 4 a.m., so no one in the house was awake. This is why staying up past the devil's hour is not a good idea, my friends. My mind seemed to go into a frenzy as I tried everything to get myself to move at least somewhat. As if by some sort of miracle, I was able to slowly turn myself onto my back. I could feel myself starting to wake up, but I felt so heavy, like I had the world's heaviest weighted blanket laying over top of me. My eyes were struggling to stay open as I attempted to look to where I thought that person or thing was. I saw nothing, but I still felt that horrible feeling that I wasn't alone. I managed to get myself out of bed, but fell onto my floor. At this point, I'm not sure if I was experiencing sleep paralysis or if I had some sort of other hold on me. I was laying in a heap on my bedroom floor. It genuinely was the weirdest and most stressful feeling. But as I lay on my floor, I looked towards the dark corner of my attic room, and my heart nearly stopped. I saw a black figure just looming in the corner of the attic. It didn't look like a person, just darkness. It didn't move. It just sat idle, like it was watching me. I remember struggling to get to my knees as I kept my eyes on it. My mind was racing as I tried to figure out what this was and what I was supposed to do. The heavy feelings still lingered, and I stayed on my knees, slightly bent over since I couldn't straighten out my back. I remember quickly looking at the floor and spotted my greatest weapon, the sword I would wield in this battle with Satan, a high heel. I chucked that thing with all the force I could muster. It was like a Bible story that was removed from the final version of the Bible because it was just too badass. The heel was actually a red strappy high heel I really liked, so I don't know why I was willing to sacrifice it to this dark demon blob. But even as my heel hit the wall it loomed near, it didn't move at all. The only other thing I could think to do was beg to God, or whatever higher power there might be, to help me. Then, that tiny lamp on my desk got so fucking bright. Its 2-watt bulb quite literally lit up the entire attic. It lasted maybe 3 seconds before going back to its normal yellow glow. At this point, I could stand up and nearly fell over as I quickly stood. And then it was gone. The attic had gotten dark again without the magic lamp, yet no blob was there. I stayed completely awake for the rest of the night and went to school a few hours later. I have no idea what happened that night or why, but I never experienced anything like it again. I'm not sure why, but I never told my aunt or uncle about what happened that night. Well, I probably thought they'd think I was mentally unwell, which I was. I lived with them for a few more months before moving back home with my mom and stepdad after graduating. It's been over 7 years now, and I still have no explanation for any of it. So, to make myself feel better, I tell my scared soul that it was Trevor. Trevor is my dead goldfish. He was murdered at the hands of my 4-year-old cousin just days before Satan visited me. I believe that Trevor was the spirit that lit up that lamp and in turn lit up Satan's ass. Rest in peace, sweet boy. Anyway, that is my story. Please manifest that my current stint with sleep paralysis ends before I get visited by a demon again.
Or if you get visited, let's pray to the good Lord and Trevor that there's somebody there to get your back.
R.I.P. Trevor. We
Right?
recently lost scales, so may they swim the brightest ocean blue up in the sky of the aquarium sky.
That big old aquarium in the sky.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, man, I hate sleep paralysis. This has
Yeah.
brought back so many of my sleep problems I used to have. A lot more in college years. I have not had, thankfully, not had things like this recently, but being conscious and not being able to move your body is absolutely just terror-inducing, not to mention you're just in high school. You know, you're a kid.
Yeah, I remember this happening a lot too. I haven't had it happen as much as I got older either. I do remember several times waking up and having that heavy feeling that you describe where like I would often feel like I'm going to suffocate in my bed because I don't have the strength to like roll over.
Mm-hmm.
And I would have to like kind of wake up or just like mentally like force myself to roll over. So I think that might be like a common thing from it, albeit terrifying because you're like, I literally could just suffocate under my own hand. Like I'm just laying here in bed, but I can't get myself to move. But yeah, seeing something in the corner and this whole attic sounds like, I'm glad that you only had one experience, but not being able to see all of the room I'm in. Ooh, that does something.
It really does. It's just that fear that grows in your mind of the unknown, but like vaguely seen. And I think the shadow figure is the scariest part, which we talked a little bit about in the Hat Man episode, like what your eyes can do to you in the light and things like that. So the answer is definitely just call on the soul of your sweet departed goldfish to come in.
He will take your fin and guide you through. And also, I'm so sorry that you had such a negative experience your senior year of school. That's bullying at any time. Your senior year, and then you got to move to a new school. I hope that it ended up better than it started, and that you're in a better place now. Because even though, you're an adult now, like we all still remember that kind of stuff happening. So may the sleep demons visit those bullies. Trevor's nowhere to be found in those dreams.
Exactly. Visit them instead and leave me alone. Well, thank you. Sinisterhood will be right back. Well, this next one is from Nikki/Natasha, and she did not give us a subject line, but we're going to give you the subject line of I didn't know I was being mugged. And Nikki writes, my name is Nikki, and I absolutely adore you gals and this community you've created. I love being a part of the Patreon family, the inside jokes with strangers, and the collective gathering of information so as we may not be gaslit by cynics. This story comes from my chosen daughter who moved to Philadelphia a few years back from our small, Stars Hollow-esque town of McMinnville, Oregon, about an hour southwest of Portland. The fact that she told me this story in a nonchalant manner while we chatted left me in shock, horror, and dare I say, impressed? I'm so proud of her, all the obstacles she's overcome in her life, and to see her thriving. Makes my mama heart gush. All right, here's her story. I've experienced quite a few scary things since moving to Philadelphia. Between living right next door to a sex trafficker and moving into a haunted house, I've seen some shit. That being said, I think one of the most ridiculous experiences I had was when someone attempted to mug me. Now, I live in a relatively safe part of Philadelphia, but at the end of the day, Philadelphia is still Philadelphia, and even the safest neighborhoods have their moments. Arson, armed bank robbery, break-ins and murders, etc. You get the idea. Anyway, I think it's important to note that I am a relatively non-threatening, petite-looking woman, and I tend to get targeted for things like this more often than I'd like. But what makes this experience notably different is that I didn't realize I was getting mugged. Let me repeat, I didn't realize I was getting mugged. It happened in late spring, and it was kind of a breezy, warm day that pops up after a thunderstorm has passed through. The world literally smells green, and everyone was taking advantage of the weather to go on walks, mow the lawn, or go out for a drink. It all went down when I was on a run after work. I was approaching Main Street, which is lined with shops and restaurants, when I slowed to a walk. It was in that moment a man turned a blind corner and made a beeline right for me. Immediately, his eyes locked on me. He blocked my path, and he said in an oddly flat voice, "I need your help." He was huge, taking up almost all of the space on the sidewalk just by standing in it. Now, again, I'll remind you that I'm in a relatively busy and what I believed was safe neighborhood. So while this man's 1,000-mile stare was raising my hackles, I didn't consider the fact that I could be in any immediate danger. And being the non-confrontational person I am, I replied, "I'll help if I can. What do you need?" Friends, this was my mistake. Here's the thing. When a strange man stops you on the street, invades your personal space, and then asks a favor from you, don't be helpful. Don't be polite. Be an asshole and or run into oncoming traffic if need be. Because the next thing I knew, he was asking me if I had my wallet on me. Quick side note. I'm not sure if it's brilliant or stupid of me, but whenever I go out for a run, I usually leave all my personal items safely at home. That means no wallet, keys, cash, and luckily for me that day, not even my phone. I quite literally had nothing but the clothes on my back. So when this dead-eyed man asked me if I had any money, I answered truthfully, I was not carrying cash. This was profoundly lucky because 1, I'm a shit liar and he'd be able to read through me in a heartbeat. And 2, even if I had cash on me, I wouldn't have thought to lie because, again, I didn't think I was in any danger. Had I brought anything with me, I probably would have said, yes, I've got my wallet right here, and waved it under his nose. I can't say I blame him for not believing me because who the fuck doesn't go out without their personal belongings these days? He leaned down into my space even further so that I was eye to eye with his unnervingly expressionless gaze. And this time, he said the classic, you're being mugged line, give me all your money. If you're thinking this is the moment that I realized, oh no, I'm being mugged, you would be wrong. Instead, I was confused. Had he not heard me? Did I not enunciate clearly enough? So, in a louder and slower voice, the kind you'd used with your grandmother after she lost her hearing aids, I repeated that I didn't have my wallet or cash on me at the moment, then proceeded to gesture to my running outfit, which, let's be honest, didn't leave a whole lot hidden or much to the imagination. I even pointed out my lack of pockets for emphasis. He seemed taken aback by the fact that I wasn't pissing my pants and tried to salvage the situation if I had my credit cards. No. My phone? No. Headphones? No. Or a car nearby? Also no. During this exchange, he was growing increasingly pissed off. I tried backing away from him, but he just kept walking with me until I was trapped between him and a nearby wall. He was extremely frustrated, and I think a little disturbed by the dawning realization that the one person he singled out to mug that afternoon had nothing for him to take. It wasn't until I was quite literally backed into a corner and he was reaching toward me that I had that magical aha moment when I realized I was in a pickle. I didn't know if this guy was going to grope me, pat me down for my non-existent wallet, or try something else equally as nefarious when another person turned the corner. Running on pure adrenaline, I didn't hesitate. At the highest, most annoying decibel possible, I shrieked, "Oh my God, Kate, is that you?" and scrambled away from the creep, who was so startled by my outburst he'd finally pulled away from me. I had no idea who the hell this woman was, nor did I care, but she was my ticket out of there. I grabbed her by her arm, steering her back to the main road where there would hopefully be plenty more people about as witnesses. She initially tried to wrench her arm out of my grip, so I leaned in and desperately whispered, "Please keep walking. That guy is scaring the shit out of me." And though she grumbled something about this all being fucking annoying, she walked with me until we reached the busy street. She didn't even stop long enough for me to thank her. She just peeled me off of her and kept walking, leaving me to duck away to relative safety. So, yeah, that was the time I was almost mugged and didn't realize it until it was almost too late. Definitely wasn't as scary as the time a man in a full ski mask and jumpsuit chased me 3 blocks and across traffic, or the time I got knocked to the ground by a man who was robbing a Burlington coat factory. Certainly not as terrifying as dealing with a ghost who thinks it's funny to knock on walls, turn on the TV and fireplace off and on, and generally terrorize me. But it was still a wild ride. Anyway, thanks for reading, and I hope that if you're ever mugged, you also don't have anything on you worth taking. P.S. I've thrown this out before, but I own my own little wine tour company in Oregon. Next time y'all visit, please let me treat you to a fun day. To my fellow Sinisterheads listening who are interested, reach out and let me know you're part of our Christy/Heather cult. You have more fun as a follower, but you make more money as a leader. Creed, The Office. And I'll honor our sisterhood of Sinisterhood, a vineyardwinetour.com. After asking Natasha to write this, she is now hooked on the podcast too. Love you, girl. Love to all. Keep it creepy.
Okay. Well, I think Nikki is the one who owns the wine tour.
Yes,
first off. And I do remember Nikki saying that, and that is such a sweet offer
Thank
to
you.
still stand. And I love that you're extending it out to others that live there too. We got a lot of listeners in Oregon. That story earlier just was.
Mm-hmm.
Also, one of my favorite quotes from The Office. Creed is maybe my favorite character. And he's not wrong.
No.
You do have more fun as a follower, but you make more money
He's
as
like,
a leader.
You're out there in the mud and the rain. It's possible a guy could have slipped in there. There'd be no way of knowing. Yeah, Creed is the best. I love him.
Oh, but Natasha.
Whoa.
Wow. I mean, if all of these things have happened since you've lived there, perhaps it's time to move to a different city.
What a wild time indeed. Yeah. Hopefully that's not all in Philly. Although, you never know. It's a big city. There might be a Burlington coat factory there, but
not Burlington coat factory.
He's
you
like,
can get so much more than
coats.
coats. You can get bags and socks and hats. Also, it gets real cold there, so maybe he was desperate.
He robbed the whole factory, the Burlington coat factory,
the entire factory.
I myself have been mugged and did not realize it, and it's only because my giant brother-in-law just acted like it was fine. The guy came up behind him and was like, "Give me your wallet." And my brother-in-law turned around and said, "Give me your wallet." Which is not what I would say if I was being mugged. You could just say, "How may I help you?" Like Natasha did.
Yeah, I don't really go anywhere without my stuff, but in this instant, it definitely worked for you. Fuck that lady who didn't want to help and was annoyed by you. I mean, maybe that's another reason to also move to a different city. It seems like you're having a lot of hard interactions there.
Yeah, it is. You grab by a stranger. I would say once that is annoying, but when they lean in and say, "Please help me," there's a man following me.
Yeah.
The right answer
is a young, small girl that's in running clothes. I mean, come on. She's not trying to get anything from you.
No, that's why Coach Bennett always says on the app, like, as runners, we're all, each other's keepers. So if somebody does need that help, like while you're out there, I don't run with anything except I do have my phone with me, my Birdie personal alarm, which is kind of a good thing because if somebody's right in your face and you yank it, it's just so loud. They'll probably just walk away because it's like obnoxious. But I keep that hooked to me. But yeah, I don't keep my wallet with me. I don't take my cash. I mean, I wouldn't
take any of that for sure.
A watch and a phone, which is stealable. So then I also have pepper spray. So
yeah, no, I think those are smart things to take. It's hard for me to go anywhere without my phone because which is crazy because we didn't used to have phones on us all the time and we all got along just fine. But now we've become so dependent on them. But it seems like we've done other stories like this too, where the perpetrator's thrown off by the kind of lack of being scared of the other person, but it's usually because they don't realize what's happening. But this is, you're in your own world and this just happens. It does take you a second for your brain to catch up and process what's really going on.
Yeah, you're like, I just came out onto the street for my run, which I get it. Like when you're running a populated street, you often have to walk and kind of maneuver it. So that does catch you off guard when someone just literally blocks your path and starts talking to you.
And I need your help sounds like they need your help. It doesn't sound threatening at first.
No, but it is threatening. I like this idea of just being like, I don't understand what's happening. It's like, I'm mugging you. Huh?
Yeah, just play stupid and maybe you'll get out of it.
Well, yeah. Well, thank you, both Nikki and Natasha. Thank you for introducing her to the show and for sharing this story. And yeah, hopefully, if you have somebody grab your arm and be like, "Please keep me from this guy," we take a different tact in this gal.
Fucking annoying. I'm late for work now.
Sinisterhood will be right back. Well, this next one is from Tia, and the subject line is Premonition. Dear Heather and Christy, I love your show so much. I've been blowing through all the episodes at rapid fire since I found you about 5 months or so ago. I've laughed and cried right along with you, and I appreciate all the work you put into every single episode. I will definitely be supporting your Patreon soon. On to my story. I've not told more than a handful of people, and it's not a particularly happy one, so I do apologize for that, but it is mine. It was November of 2017, over Thanksgiving break. I was a senior in college, graduating in December, freaked out about what to do after, and, most importantly, at home during this time. I've always been a homebody. I'm a Cancer, sue me, and being an only child of 2 older parents, we've always been fairly close. That week, my dad had a doctor's appointment for some little issues he'd been having. He was a mountain of a man, the hardest worker I've ever known, and as gentle as they come. Seriously, he was literally the most patient person I'd ever had the privilege of knowing, and he could fix literally anything. Well, fix, MacGyver it, same difference. Anyway, my parents were late coming home from the doctor's appointment, and that made me a little uneasy. Not because of the appointment per se, just because it was late, dark, and neither of them had called me to tell me they were on their way home. Regardless, I sat on the entryway stairs for what felt like hours, but was probably only half a one at most. Eventually, I saw the telltale signs of that old Ford, and I breathed a sigh of relief. They were back. They were okay. The rest of the night carried on as usual, though I did learn that the doctor said Pop had developed type 2 diabetes, which, while was a new thing to work around, we could do it. Grocery trips would take longer, and we had to be more picky about some things, but that was fine. That night, I went to sleep easily, but not for long. I don't often remember my dreams, save for the reoccurring one where I'm a gopher living under my great aunt's house, and that dream is only ever in shades of green. And I can't honestly say I remember the dream rather than I remember the feels I had during it. The dream had a grief so strong and raging. I was crying so hard I woke myself with tears dripping down my face. Covered in sweat, which had started to cool and left me with goosebumps, I was gasping for air. He was dead. My father had died in this dream, and while I don't know how or why, I just know that it was him. I remember that feeling like it was yesterday, my body shaking, heart still pounding through what was honest to God a near panic attack. I tried to breathe through it, repeating a mantra of, "It's okay, he's asleep in the next room, Dad's alive," over and over again like a prayer. And it relieved me, even if just a bit. But I didn't go back to sleep that night. I didn't tell my mom about it. Really, how could I? I wouldn't know where to start. So I repeated that mantra from time to time. It's okay, he's fine. I'll spare the worst of the details, but, well, he wasn't fine. He'd more or less fallen through the cracks at the doctor's office, and it wasn't until January 11th when we got the call. There was a spot on his pancreas. The next 3 months were a blur of grief and anger and guilt that ended on the first day of spring. And then a new kind of grief began. Not only that, but Dad passed 10 years apart to the exact day of Mom's brother with the exact same thing. Seems like that's a little more than just a coincidence, no? I've still never told Mom about the dream. It's not like it would do any good, but I've never forgotten. A couple years later, something similar happened with my grandmother on my mom's side, though this time it wasn't quite as visceral. Maybe it was because she was older, and while it still would be sad, made at least a little more sense. I knew that she wouldn't be leaving that nursing home. I'd be lying if I said every time I remember a person I know in a dream, I didn't get a little nervous. I always try to call or text or something just so I can hear their voice, just so I can know they're okay, in that moment at least. I wish this was a happier story, or at least had a happier ending. But sometimes life happens. We get hurt, and that's the end. But we can't stare at our wounds forever, so I'll take holding those I still have and love a little closer. Regardless if this gets read or not, I'm just glad to get this off my chest. Thanks for all the laugh, tears, and stories. Listening to the both of you always makes my day that much brighter. Fair winds to you both, Tia.
Oh, Tia, I'm so sorry for your loss. That is very hard. And it's very hard when you have a dream like that, because I have dreams that are very visceral, and I wake up and they affect me for days, sometimes weeks. I can remember feelings from dreams years ago. And what is our consciousness? So if it happens in the dream and you feel it and you've lived through it, it's weird and unnerving to then be in your waking life and be like, but I'm having these feelings of something that I can't even like touch or visit, like right now if I wanted to. This happens to me. This kind of stuff happens a lot, and I feel you, Tia. It's a weird sensation.
Kind of leaves you in that you're almost kind of still tethered to the dream world, having those same feelings in the waking life. But you're right. I mean, it's like, what is your consciousness? This made me think of Mark Ruffalo, the actor, had a dream, and he dreamt that he had a brain tumor, and was like, he said that in his dream, he had knowledge, you have a brain tumor. And when he woke up, he just was like, he had zero symptoms, nothing, checkups were all fine, everything. And I think he went to the onset doctor and said, do you think I should go get like a CT scan or like an MRI? Like, I had this dream, but there's nothing wrong with me. And the doctor was like, yes, if you had that dream and you felt it as not like, I had this weird dream where I was outside my body, I could see this happening, but a knowledge, the doctor was like, can't hurt to get scanned.
True.
And so also I think if you have Mark Ruffalo money, you could probably pay cash for an MRI. It's not that much.
Maybe.
But it got it's one of those where
but he had one?
Yeah, he did. And he got it removed and everything, and it worked out stuff. So that kind of stuff's like,
That's wild.
It's like inexplicable, but I'm happy when I may not be able to explain it, but I'd sure be happy if it happened to me, if it was something like that. Something like this too is like when I went through with my dad having an illness, a terminal illness, was like having dreams like this and almost like pre-grieving in like a certain way, which it doesn't, pre-grieving, you just do it twice. It doesn't really like alleviate it much, but that your brain's just trying to work through all those like worst case scenarios as well. But I don't blame you for calling people when you wake up. It's just a good habit to have too.
Yeah. I've had several dreams lately of people that it would be weird for me to contact now.
Oh.
But things in the dream have left me feeling so unsettled, even days after I've had them. But I'm like, what am I going to call up this person I haven't talked to in like 20 years and be like, is everything okay? So I have not done that, but I get what you mean. I would if it was someone I talked to on the regular, I for sure would check in.
Yeah, a loved one or something. Yeah, not like my 7th grade girl that sat next to me in math class. I dreamt she broke her ankle. I better call her and warn her. But yeah, I definitely can relate to you, especially of just having those like having to tell yourself he's here now, he's fine, and things like that. But in dreams, they feel so real.
It does. I repeat mantras like that a lot in my waking life when I'm having a lot of anxiety, a lot with the kids. Like everyone's here, they're fine. It is like, and that's a kind of a coping mechanism they teach you in therapy and stuff to ground yourself. So good for you, Tia, for, finding something that works to help you in those moments.
Most definitely. My sister for Christmas gave me, amongst other books, The Untethered Soul. And it talks about like the voice that talks to you and then the voice that is listening. And like sometimes the one talking is talking too much and the listener has to say, hey, it's okay. We're all okay here. And like realizing we're both the speaker and the listener. It's an interesting book as well.
It is.
Well, thank you, Tia.
Yes, thank you.
Sinisterhood will be right back. Well, this final one is from Jess, and the subject line is my super comforting, almost near-death experience. Hi, friends. Love you, love your work, and appreciate that you've been using your platform to advocate for those who don't have a voice. Thank you for all you do. I was really thrilled to hear your recent episode on near-death experiences, and I wanted to share my NDE adjacent story as efficiently as possible. When I was 17, I got super sick. It started as an intense migraine and eventually progressed to muscle weakness and trouble standing, so I was admitted to the hospital. At first, I think the docs thought I was anxious or exaggerating since I was just about to leave for college and it was a highly stressful time. But the headache didn't respond to any medication, and a spinal tap revealed that something was wrong. They just weren't sure what. Over the next 5 days, I lay in a hospital room, slowly losing my ability to control my body. I went from a happy, healthy, just about to be college freshman to someone who couldn't walk, sit up, or use the bathroom on her own. The muscles in my face stopped responding, and I couldn't smile or fully close my eyes when sleeping. An MRI revealed it was not a tumor, and the doctors ruled out an infection and meningitis. But no one had figured out what it was, and I was slowly giving up. Something about me is that up until then, I was terrified of dying. I had night terrors as a small child where I would wake up screaming, afraid that I was dying. As I got older, just the thought of death was enough to send me into a deep panic. I was raised Catholic, but I'm an atheist, and I was chilled to the core by the thought of eternal nothingness. That's relevant here. On day 5 in the hospital, as I continued to travel between the dilaudid coma and crushing pain, I woke up to realize I was being given last rites, what is now called the anointing of the sick, by our family priest. Like all good Italian-American Catholic families, we had a close relationship with our priest, Father Philip, who is truly a part of the family. He was at every holiday when I was a kid, just as much a part of our family as every grandparent and uncle. As he sprinkled me with holy water and prayed over me, I realized I was letting go. What's more, I wanted to let go. I found myself looking down at my own body as Father Philip continued to pray. Instead of fear, I felt enveloped in warmth and safety. I felt calm. For the first time in that endless week, I felt no pain. More surprisingly, I felt completely at peace with the possibility of dying. Despite being 17 with a whole life ahead of me, I felt ready to go. While this wasn't a textbook near-death experience, I never actually coded or stopped breathing. It fundamentally changed my relationship with death. The paralyzing fear that had haunted me was replaced with a profound sense of peace. Now I know that when my time comes, hopefully after a long and full life, that final transition won't be scary at all. I'm no more spiritual than I was at 17, but I am comforted to know that when it really is my time, death feels more like a warm bath than a frightening unknown. 2 postscripts to the story. The day after I had this experience, a doctor finally diagnosed me with Guillain-Barré syndrome, an autoimmune disease where my body attacked my nerves, leaving me nearly paralyzed. Recovery was intense. I had to relearn walking, eating, writing my name, everything. But that was 17 years ago, and I've been healthy since. And 3 years later, Father Philip retired from the church and married my grandma. Turns out they'd been in love this whole time and only held back because of the church. They're still happily married to this day.
We'll get to the NDE, but
oh my
Father
gosh.
Philip holding on to this crush for so long. It's
He's
unrequited love. And finally he gave up his whole career as a priest to marry your grandma. Damn.
Your grandma's a special lady for him to remove the vestments.
Right?
I like to think their hands grazed at a punch bowl at a family event like decades before and like made eye contact like, we can't, we shouldn't, we shan't. Someday we shall.
Or that's why he kept getting invited to all the holiday
we're
stuff.
Very religious. Grandma's really religious. She's in confession all the time.
So religious. She's been praying in her bedroom with Father Philip for hours.
For hours. Oh, bless your heart, Father Philip. And you know what? Like, that is an eerie feeling as a teenager that you're getting holy water sprinkled on you. Like, that really does mean, you know, they're calling the ball game.
And they're giving you, and I did not know, that's interesting that it's now called something else. But yeah, you're like, what is this wet stuff on my face? And everyone's just expecting you to go. I'm glad though that it helped with your fear of death. I also used to have a huge fear of death. I also would consider myself an atheist, more so when I was younger. Now I'm just kind of like, whatever, there's something, but who knows what it is. But I also, like, the older I got and stuff, the less I became afraid of death. But I think you made a good point here where, like, that didn't change you and now you're super spiritual. I think a lot of times people think, like, when something like that happens, it has to change your whole worldview. And it doesn't necessarily. It just means now you don't have such a scary association with death, and that's great. And yeah, I'm glad that the something so scary of just being a healthy 17-year-old and that fast you go downhill is terrifying.
Yeah, Guillain-Barré syndrome is scary. I knew a person just outside of college that had that happen, and I just remember being like, out of nowhere, it's just like literally, yeah, one day, like she said, this part stops working, this part stops working, and it took a lot of like diagnosing, and then just a very long road to recovery of learning to walk and clothes not fitting and just motor functions and whatnot. So it is a hard thing to even diagnose, much less overcome. But I don't know what Dilaudid is like. In my knowledge of Dilaudid comes from, if I'm not wrong, Criminal Minds, the television show, when one of the characters became addicted to Dilaudid.
Oh, I think it's a heavy dose pain medication.
Yes, and it gives you your like kind of that's similar to like heroin or something, kind of like a
fuzzy, warm
fuzzy,
feeling.
Flowy feeling. But her description of what happened kind of made me think of the people in, what was that documentary we watched, and it was narrated by Captain Marvel, Fantastic Fungi, when those people were talking about having those like kind of psychedelic experiences, but in a grounded way with like family around you and a priest maybe around you, but then coming out of that going like, oh, I don't fear death.
Yeah.
So, touching the veil, getting close, tingling some neurons in there in some fashion. I don't know, but it's at least a positive outcome if you had to get close to dying.
Yeah. If you feel like, well, I was about to die and I felt okay with it. So when the real time comes, you know that you won't be as scared. And what a relief that is. I felt a lot of relief when I stopped being afraid of death, because it is something that really hangs over your head, because spoiler alert, it happens to all of us. Unless you're
Friday.
A vampire. Unless you become eternal somehow, it happens to us, you know?
We will leave these meat sacks behind and ascend to where? I don't know, TBD. But Yeah, it can, and it also can, I think, it attaches to everything. So then, the fear of death also will make you fear other stuff too. So
yeah, or the death of others. I mean,
true.
that is a different fear in and of itself, just because of the sadness and loss that comes along with it. However, perhaps knowing that if you felt like that when, you're on the edge, that others that you love will experience something similar, hopefully.
Hopefully something beautiful and peaceful. And if the NDEs we talked about in the episode or anything to go off of, maybe after you live your long and full life, Jess, then Father Philip and your grandma will be there waiting for you, and they'll be holding hands.
They're going to go hand in hand through those pearly gates.
Many years.
They need to write their story down.
Please, God,
if they haven't already. But what a story, because, and please let us know, maybe, just because I got to know the tea. Did they have a conversation sometime before then? Had it been in an ongoing, will they, won't they, making eyes across the room?
Singular, hand touch across the room? I don't know.
He passes you the wafer, he places it on your tongue, and there's a spark of just oh, Father Philip.
They knew.
Mm-hmm.
They both knew.
Thank you for sending that in and for sharing your story with us. That's a hard thing to go through all around, and I'm glad that it came out with you feeling healthier and more at ease.
For sure.
And thank you to everybody else that sent in your Freaky Friday stories today. If you have an odd but true story, maybe you've encountered Bigfoot, you've seen a UFO, you had a brush with true crime, or you felt the presence of an otherworldly being, send them in at sinisterhood.com/Freaky Friday. If you like our free episodes, you'll love our Patreon bonus content. You can join for free to see what we're up to next, or dive into over 900 hours of segments like Judge Christie, Dear Sinister, True Crime Headlines, Heather's Saves, several Reddit segments, and so much more.
So very much more. And if you join for free once a month, you get a free bonus content sent to you in your email box. So you don't even have to, put your credit card in, just sign up, give your email. And there's also an archive backlog of those free bonus contents that have been put out. So if you're just interested in kicking around, do that. Or you can do a 1-week free trial and see the mini-sodes, replays of live streams, get the merch discount and all of those other things. And if you sign up for an annual subscription, you get 1 month free. So there's lots of free to be had over on Patreon.
There is. The recent Hallmark After Dark we did with Hot Frosty was also open to all free members. So you would be able to go back and watch that just for signing up for free as well.
Definitely. Head over to Sinisterhood.com, click shop on the top banner to check out Sinisterhood merch like t-shirts, mugs, totes, stickers, and even clothes for your kiddos.
While you're on our website, you can also review the show, follow us on socials, and check out the episode description. You'll also find fun things like topic-based playlists.
You follow us on Instagram and Threads at Sinisterhood Pod. Like us on Facebook at Sinisterhood. Watch full video versions of the Wednesday episodes on YouTube. They're ad-free on Patreon. And you can check out clips of the show on TikTok. Don't forget to head over to cameo.com/Sinisterhood for your custom personalized video shout out, whether it's a happy birthday, happy anniversary, a pep talk, some advice. You want to see Petal. That's completely a valid reason to just be like, I want to see Petal.
That's the only thing I care about. And we'll just give you a 2-minute
That's it.
shot of her walking around the backyard.
Yeah, it just says DGAF about Christy and Heather. Petal content only. We can make it happen at cameo.com. Where can people find you on the internet?
I am, and my pig are on Instagram and Threads at Christy M. Wallace and TikTok at Christy or GTFO. Heather?
On the internet at Heather versus the world.
As always, the devil rules the airwaves.
Keep it creepy.
Say